if you want to give money, hey, I want to give $1 million to my kids while I'm alive. Then give $1 million, or if you want to give $1 million when you're dead, give $1 million when you're alive. Figure out your finances. Like I said, it's kind of a finance book. Figure out your finances. You're retired at 65. I plan on living to at least 95. I'm gonna give myself another 10-year runway. I got X amount of money. I need X amount to live per year, and divide it up, and then give all the rest away. Tanner, 7 kids. Where are you leaving them?
Well, I feel like we've talked about this a couple different times, and I brought up the joke of Steve Harvey when he says that, I'm going to spend 90% of everything I own on your mom, and I'll leave you guys just enough to get ahead. But a blend of that, and I've been learning more about setting up a revocable trust and, putting all of our assets in a trust and how all that stuff works. And we haven't really come to a decision on what the terms will be, but let's say that we have a $50 million net worth. I want that to be invested in a way where there's no possible way the kids could spend through it, and give them just enough of a head start where they want to take risks building businesses and stuff like that. They'll never have to worry about where their food's going to, come from. Their kids, their grandkids will always be taken care of, but without giving them full control at 18, and blowing it and making the dumb, rich kid mistakes. So I don't know. I've been deciding, because, when you set up a trust, obviously I recommend anyone go through an attorney when they do it, but you can have it where they get them at certain age milestones. They get percentages at certain milestones. They have to read a certain book before you'll release any funds to them. You can wait until they're married, until they're, they have kids of their own. There's many different ways to set it up, but I think the most important thing for me is that money is still invested and the dividends are dispersed amongst the kids. Because if I have $50 million earning 6%, then that 6% is substantial enough for 7 kids to live a good life.
Yeah, so I kind of take a different approach, similar but different approach to that. I tell my kids I'm living to be at least 100. So I got a lot of life left ahead of me. So let's see, my youngest will be 11 here soon. So say she'll be like 70 roughly when I expire. Mm-hmm. She doesn't need my money at that time.
That's a good point.
So, I'll give them X, Y, and Z throughout life, Christmas presents or whatever, maybe it'd be cash or, kind of. Mm-hmm. I believe in giving someone sometime while they're here, not waiting all the way to the end to give it to them. But I already set up a revocable living trust. And my goal with that is, and you can tailor it while you're in charge of it and all, still alive.
And that's the point of it being revocable, right?
Yeah. So you can
changes.
Yeah. So you can make changes. So like my youngest, or my old, turns 18 here in a week or so. And so obviously we can change it then. Now that she's 18, you can be like, okay, you get X or whatever if something happens. That's more like if something happens to my wife and I. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't believe in giving money to your kids. I believe that they should get. I've already provided for them for 18 years. Mm-hmm. Daughter's going to college. That's another. She wants to get her master's. That's another. She'll be going in as a sophomore, so 5 years theoretically. So she comes out. She's 24 roughly. Like I've provided for 24 years. I'm done. Mm. Like. Sorry, I get 3 daughters. I got to pay for weddings. Mm-hmm. So those things aren't cheap.
Well, so they're all grown. Their weddings are all paid for. Yeah. They're off living life with their families, and you have a nest egg when you do pass. Then what do you do with your nest egg?
So that's where the living trust can come in. And for me, I don't know how much you've looked into the Rockefellers. So you have the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers. Mm-hmm. Similar net worths, similar time periods. Today, there are no Vanderbilts as far as rich, wealthy from
Mm-hmm.
that family. The only one that has any money is Anderson Cooper,
Mm-hmm.
who made his money as a
an anchor.
as a news anchor.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the only one from the Vanderbilt line that has any money. The Rockefellers on the other side, they're all wealthy. I mean, you don't hear about them,
Mm-hmm.
but they all have money. So that's kind of and the Bible says in Proverbs, I refer back to Proverbs a lot because I read them a lot, but a wise man leaves inheritance to his children's children.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say a wise man leaves an inheritance to his children.
Mm-hmm.
It says his children's children. So what my plan is to set up a trust that there's money in there. I'll have a life insurance policy that'll go into the trust. And they can borrow from the trust.
Mm.
They're not going to get money from the trust, but if they want to go to school, instead of getting a Pell Grant, or I guess grant would be free, but instead of getting a loan for that, or getting a loan for a car, or getting a loan for a house, or getting a loan for a business, there's money in there for our family, and you borrow money, you pay it back. You pay at a low interest rate. So right now, 10-year is 4.5 roughly.
Mm.
So maybe they borrow it at 2.5. Maybe it's 2% lower than the 10-year.
But they pay it back into the trust.
But they pay it back into the trust.
Mm-hmm.
So they get a good interest rate. Like right now, you want to go buy a business, you're going to get 8, 10, 12%, depending on your, where you're at. Well, maybe they're getting it at 5% or 3%.
Mm.
You want to go to school, you get a loan at 2%. You want to buy a car, what's the bank giving you, and then we'll discount it a point. Whatever. Like those are all things that I still need to set up and kind of come up with. But the thing, I would probably only set something up for like 2 generations and then let them reevaluate at that time for a couple of reasons. One, 2 generations after I'm gone, like it's pretty diluted as far as genes, and like I mean, you and I could be related as close as that will be, from me 2 3 generations down the road. Does that make sense? Like they're theoretically strangers.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't really know. Yes, they have similar bloodlines, but it's way down there at that point in time. So would you be giving all this money to complete strangers? I don't know. So that's one thing. Like, do I just give it to charity after 3 generations, donate it all to charity, or do I just feel that they can control it better and keep it going? I don't know that. That's where I struggle is 2, 3 generations after.
But if it's a revocable trust, then because you have the beneficiaries, which are your kids, right? But the person who oversees it doesn't have to be one of the. Well, nobody has to be related to you. You can have
correct.
Anyone be a beneficiary of the trust, and then also it's not an executor. But what's the name of the person that controls what happens or oversees the trust?
Yeah, we'll call it the overseer.
Because it's not an executor. Executor.
No, it's like a manager. I can't think of the term.
Yeah, I can't think of the term either. But that could be one of the kids, but it doesn't have to be. It can
you can hire an independent. I mean, that's what family offices do.
Right.
That's kind of. They have a lot of wealth, so they have a CFO and they have a attorney and they have a mortgage broker or whatever.
But if it's a revocable trust, and
so it changes once you
pass.
Once you pass,
then it's you can't make any changes.
Then it changes to then it goes into irrevocable status.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I thought you have to set up the irrevocable once you're locked in. But if you set up an irrevocable from the start, there's no changes, right? It's
a lot more. And
it's like a dissolution of an entity.
Yeah, and I've talked to people who are like, don't ever get one. Like, it does nothing for you for taxes.
Right.
They're expensive. Attorneys aren't cheap.
Yeah, right.
So you have to maintain them. So,
But then, so while, I mean, obviously you took the proactive solution to set this up in the beginning. Are you structuring it to where your trust now owns all the entities that you do business out of? So everything flows back through the trust? Yeah, so that makes sense. I don't
it
even have to go
does.
too deep in the, but that's one thing that I want
I'm
to
trying to
do.
protect my assets, and you're trying to get me to divulge them on camera.
I mean, even if someone knows the actual structure,
But yeah, so I have a trust
Mhm.
that owns a holding company, and then everything else is owned by the holding company.
Yeah. See, so what I did is I set up a holding company, and then I have a PC that's lateral with my holding company because the PC is where I run all of my professional income from. So anything real estate related income goes through my S corp, and the tax reasons, all that stuff. But one thing that I have not set up is having my holding company own all the rest of the LLCs. Those are still my personal names. So they're almost like series LLCs more than that kind of vertical structure.
And you brought up a point. An S corp cannot be held by a single member LLC.
Right.
So, like the structure of the plumbing company is different than what I just said. Like it could own it. No, it actually can't. So, yeah, my trust cannot, and my holding company cannot hold the plumbing company because of the structure. Legally, there's.
So as far as asset protection and stuff like that, is that, I mean, what do you do to make sure that insurance? So then how does that work? To just buy out your equity in the company, or what? I don't understand.
What do you mean?
So like your interest in your company, obviously you got employees, you got, reoccurring revenue and stuff like that. If something happened to you and your kids or your wife didn't want to keep the company, then their option is just to sell the company?
Yes.
Okay. So there's no way for that to...
There's no way for my family to own it. It has to be the way we structured it, because it's a partnership. So the company has to buy it.
I see. So then, yeah, that makes sense.
But then the company could always,
So then the company has the life insurance policy for you, not you personally.
You can do it either way.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So like I had to set up, even just to get the loan, I had to set up a $250,000 life insurance policy. My wife gets the life insurance policy, but they know that she has that money. So they will make her, can't make her, but it's their insurance to know that, hey, there's money there to recoup this.
That makes sense.
So, but at first I thought the bank was going to be the beneficiary of it, but no, they said, no, my wife is.
Yeah, it's interesting. And this is another example of there's no right or wrong way of doing it. Obviously anyone should talk to an attorney and have it set up the way that, is best for them. But I'm just curious at seeing how all the different structures, because obviously there's asset protection, there's taxes, then, there's the generational wealth aspects to it. And I really like the idea of the borrowing against. I've heard about Rockefeller family and how they do that, and combining that with whole life policies, and all the policies go back into the family fund. That's kind of along what my idea is if I have this capital that's just reinvested, and all the dividends for a long time, for the rest of my life, are reinvested into the fund, then I would never need to liquidate that, and it would grow faster than it can be spent. And then, percentage of dividends could be a lot of money. What's quick math? What's the 6% of 50 million?
300,000.
Yeah, 3 million divided by 7.
3 million.
Yeah, so $430,000 a year per kid. I don't think it'd be difficult for them to burn through that at the lifestyle that we live. So, but it's substantial enough to where they can turn that into their own millions, and so on and so forth. But I definitely want to learn more about how that idea of having a family office that everyone borrows against and pays back into.
So it's interesting. I feel like we're in, like, there's very little that you can go on the internet and find out, or can't go on the internet and find out. Go to YouTube University and learn. I have tried my damnest I bought books, I've watched videos on this. This is like the one wealthy, like, secret asset protection and family inheritance and stuff like that I feel like things are hidden pretty well. Like, you'll see little snippets here and there, but I've never found something that's like,
this is how
this is the best practices.
Yeah.
Well, not even like, because everybody's going to have something different. Like, like, you can't have an S corp that's not a single member S corp owned by a holding company. There's ways around it, but it starts getting weird.
Yeah.
At least from my research. So yeah, it's, I don't know. I don't know if it's just that big of a business, or if it's just that up until now, it's only the rich that have
figured it out,
and done revocable living trusts and all this stuff. I don't know, but I don't know many people that have.
Yeah. Well, and most of the clients that I've worked with that are usually beneficiaries of a living trust, I mean, the siblings, they just sell everything off and then part ways. Like, it's the idea of keeping, and this goes along with my wife and I, we really keep almost fantasizing about is having a family compound, like buying a few 100 acres where each of our kids can build their own houses and, have this own, I don't know, maybe it sounds wacky, but.
So, and I'm not a lawyer, and every state's different, but so my family were farmers. They immigrated from Germany, both sides. Both my great grandparents on my grandma's side, my mom's side, and so there was two farms, family farms, that when everybody passed away, my mom's generation inherited. So there's 11 brothers and sisters. Like, my grandma was one of 11. So all their that next generation, inherited this land. Well, in Louisiana, at least, it was called an undivided interest. So it was roughly 1,000 acres. So say you have 20 people, 1,000 acres. So you each own 50 acres, whatever. But it's undivided. So if one person wants out, you have to convince all of them to get out. Or and it just starts getting murky. So they sold all that. But say they didn't sell it, and they kept it and just leased it out for years, and then we inherited it. Now you went from 11 to 20. Now we're at 40 people.
Yeah.
And then you go another generation. Like, it gets way too complicated.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, and I mean, with joint tenants or tenants in common, different structures. I mean, you can set up a condo association where you own the improvements, but you don't own the land, and all this stuff. But yeah, I think that there's definitely ways that we can make it work. And granted, I don't ever want our kids or our grandkids or our great grandkids to ever have land disputes or worry. I want it all to be laid out, and when I'm 3 generations away, then,
And that's why I say, put in the trust. You don't own it.
Right, the trust does.
The trust owns it.
But they also have nothing to fight about. Whereas if you just leave a will,
correct,
then it's probate, and the kids are all arguing about it.
So the trust is there. There's a manager of the trust that you pay. You can pay. It can be a family member too. But
I'll look that up while we're talking.
That word,
yes, because it bothers me.
And they can control, like, they can help with the fighting, and you could put all those levers in, and it just makes things, I think, so much smoother, because you don't have all the infighting. What's it called?
Trustee.
One of those big words. I couldn't remember.
Gosh, that's awesome. So a trustee is the individual or institution entrusted with managing the trust assets and carrying out the instructions outlined in the trust document, also known as the trust instrument.
Yeah. But yeah, so the trustee would control all that, and it protects all that infighting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I don't care what somebody says, like, oh, my kids get along, or like, you start putting money.
Until money or property is involved.
Like,
people show their true colors.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll tell my story. So my dad died almost 13 years ago. So him and my mom had got divorced. So my dad died 13 years ago. They got divorced in 2006, and he got remarried in like 2010 or something like that. He passed away in 2012. So he redid his will. And he went to a brand new lawyer that didn't really know anything, or, like straight out of law school. And the way my dad set up his will was, I'm trying to remember exactly how this was, but it was, we got the house and all his possessions, his truck, stuff like that. But she was supposed to get, in Louisiana, it's called usufruct. I mean, it comes French as use of the fruit. So basically what it was we owned a house that we had to maintain, and she got to live there free and clear. And I was like, hell no. So I basically, like, I didn't want, we talked about risk before. Mm-hmm. I didn't want that risk. So I just wrote everything off. Like, I was like I didn't know the lady. Like, I met her or whatever, but it was a stepmom that I had no real connection to. I could see once a year or something like that. And so I was like, I'm not opening myself up to that liability. And so I just basically wrote everything off, and I got a couple $1,000, but that was it out of, and like Valerie's asked me, like, did that upset you? I'm like, no, because at the end of the day, I knew what my dad was trying to do. Mm-hmm. It's just the execution of it was not handled properly.
Right.
And
just complicated it.
Yeah,
more.
It complicated things, and I got screwed at the end of the day.
Right.
I mean, I could hold a grudge, I could be upset or whatever. What's I going to do? Mm-hmm. So I guess my point of saying all that is, not only go to an attorney, mm-hmm. but get one that knows what they're doing. And so there was life insurance on the house. So like my dad so the house was paid off, but I still had to pay the bills. And then, so it was, say the house was worth $250,000, it was $250,000 life insurance that paid it off. So the house would have been free and clear. It wasn't free and clear whenever he passed, but the life insurance covered it.
Right. And you don't have any siblings?
Me and my sister.
Oh, your sister.
We just agreed to
let it go.
Yeah.
And I mean, my wife and I are both oldest of three. Like, my wife has 2 younger brothers. I have 2 younger sisters. We both told our parents, like, I don't want anything. Don't put me in your will. Like, I don't want to deal with the mess. I don't want to fight with my siblings. Like, let them have it. And not that, our families are leaving us, hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, I don't like that. Those are the parts that really tears families apart. It's like it takes decades for people to come back from those little disputes over what?
Well, and that's the thing, is like, we could have hired attorneys, we could have fought her on it, mm-hmm. but to what end?
Yeah.
Well, my viewpoint, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah. Well, so the lesson there is be proactive, get it done sooner. But so in your opinion, in your non-legal, opinion, when do you think someone should set up that trust? Because, I mean, for me, I'm looking at, I was told not to set up my S Corp until I was making $100,000 annually. And then when we started making $100,000, we got it set up. It makes sense for tax reasons. So do you think that there's a certain holdings or income or whatever to set up that revocable trust?
No, I
You just think the sooner the better?
I mean, I do. Walt Disney set his up before he ever built anything with Disney. I mean, that's going back 100
so
years.
So what about what are the costs to set it, or estimated costs to set it up and to maintain?
Not cheap.
Hmm.
I mean, depends on how many LLCs are a couple $100s a year. Pay the whatever fees or whatever. And then if you have
so for your annual reporting,
whatever that comes out to, if you have a registered agent, then that costs extra. So I had a couple LLCs set up. I got a military discount on it, but it was right around $5,000 for.
So $5,000 startup, and then a few $100s a year.
Yeah. So I mean, it could be cost prohibitive for someone that's just starting out. I guess it's not cheap, I guess, but it's not cost prohibitive either. If you're making any decent amount of money, and like mine's not fancy. Like it's pretty stock. They give you a worksheet and like fill all this out.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't updated my will in long.
We didn't even have one.
Yeah, well, you have one when you enlisted, so it's very basic. It's like, this is where my bank accounts go. Yeah. This is where my remains go, and this is who gets to,
So I had that, but so I was getting ready to deploy to Iraq, and so they made us all update everything. So I have all this stuff, and so they give you this will worksheet. So I go and I fill out this will worksheet, and top of it's like name, ranks, social security number, and place of birth or state of residency or whatever. So I wrote Louisiana, and I filled out all the rest of it. Go turn it in, and they're like, "Oh, you're from Louisiana. You have to come back and set up a one-on-one. Louisiana's too different." And so I just never went back. And so that was my only time of actually trying to do.
Yeah, we didn't even get a worksheet in the Army.
Well, not for that one. I'm talking about like I still had that one set up. That was like the 3 lines.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember when my unit was getting ready to mobilize, and they had the JAG officers come down and do wills, like more in-depth wills for everyone, and I was single at the time, and I'm just like, I don't think I need this. It's dumb. And I did it anyways, but they were basically just like being. I mean, I was 20 years old. Like, all right, where do you want your bank accounts to go? If you have another month's pay, where do you want that to go? And where do you want your remains sent? Like, it was pretty basic. I mean, I just remember doing it at 17. It was such a different impact, because I came in early, and I was like, I've never really thought about these things before, so it was a humbling experience.
Yeah, so I got out of the military, and I still didn't have anything. Valerie and I wrote some stuff on a piece of paper just in case, until everything kind of finally.
I think the biggest difference is a will is like a request for how you would like a judge to rule on your possessions. Yeah. Whereas a trust is an instruction manual that this is how my stuff will be treated. Is that fair to say?
Not only that, but if you only have a will, all your possessions are going to probate. So
bank accounts, everything. Even if you're married, if you have a joint bank account and you die, that account still goes to probate, right?
I don't know about that. But if you want to protect you pass away, and now your family has to see about doing what they need to do with everything. Probate is a legal thing.
Legal process.
So it's public knowledge. Anybody can get access to that. So when people are showing up at your house, hey, I heard Tom died. Are you looking to sell? Well, are you looking to sell his house? Like, that's how they get it, is from probate. So a living trust protects that, because the trust owns it. Like, you don't own it.
Right.
Like, you don't own your house. You don't own your bank account. Well, actually, bank accounts, you keep them in your name with the trust as the beneficiary. So it just reverts to the trust.
And then while you're living, you are the trustee. and then you have an appointed trustee in your passing.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so, like, me and my wife are trustees of our trust. And then we have two or three others, like, in events. Because, I mean, you got to think about, like, you pass away and somebody else, they could pass away before you. You got to keep everything
Right.
updated and all that stuff. So
That's true.
So it's not like a set and forget it type thing.
That's a good point.
So
interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, and back to your earlier point, you could set this thing up a million different ways. Like, if they want to get money from you, they got to dress up as a chicken and go dance on the side of the street and for 30 minutes, and then come with the form. Like, you can set it up that
however
you want. Like it's a legal document. It's a contract. So if they want the money, like, that's what they have to do.
I heard something about it, like a trust is the only legal arrangement where you don't need the consent of a second party to abide by the contract. Like, it's the contract is between you and your assets, not between you and the person who's going to benefit from your assets. So that's, I don't remember where I read that from, but
yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah,
every other legal agreement, in order for
it
to be enforceable, you have to have offer and acceptance.
No, I never thought of it that way, but yeah, that seems accurate to me.
I might be making that up, but I feel like I remember reading it somewhere.
I mean, like I said, it makes sense. So
yeah. So now that we got the deeper conversation, what happens when you die?
I have no idea. Sometimes I wonder where you come up with these. You're like a 7-year-old kid, like
shiny object. Well, my oldest got me a book about near-death experiences. Have you ever heard about that whole philosophy?
I think I have. I think you have actually said something a couple weeks. Did she give it to you a couple weeks ago?
I want to say it was Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah, so a while back, but I've been
more than a couple weeks ago.
Chipping away at it. It's just interesting. It's thought-provoking. Like, how basically what they do is they take all of these people. A lot of them are like operating tables. They get in accidents, whatever, and people talk about these out-of-body experiences, like watching someone operating on them and remembering conversations that were had in the operating room when they were unconscious. Like, there's no possible way for them to know. And they give the spiritual possibility as well as the scientific possibility of, like, maybe they are just making this up, or maybe, and they talk about, like, well, this person, they could have been flatlining, but they actually had a subtle heartbeat and enough for them to hear something. And, like, although that's improbable, it is possible. And so they kind of, like, give you both or both sides of the sword and say, we're not saying that this is what happened. Like, it is possible this happened, but if this is a minimal possibility and we have 15 cases of this happening, is it possible that all of these are the unlikely possibility for each scenario? And I don't know. It's just thought-provoking. I like those things.
Do they all have wills?
I don't know. I don't think they got that far in there, but they do talk. I mean, the similarities in the stories is pretty cool. Like, they talk about, a lot of people talk about the bright light, this intense feeling of just peace and all these things. But the ones that come back from an out of body or a near-death experience, I call them NDEs, they all feel this intense tugging, or almost like being turned away. Like, there's something they forgot to do and they have to go back. Or they've talked about a figure that they talk about as like a father figure, but it's just more about, like, there's no speaking in this place. It's just kind of like nonverbal communication. And they were told, like, you need to go back. And seeing multiple people stories having, and these are published in medical journals, like, that these things happen, all having this experience. And it's like the ones that do pass away, we will never know until we get there, but just to see the difference in, I don't know.
I got to tell you, the funniest part of all this is I let you pick the topic.
And I still find a way to tangent.
And you still find a way to take it off. I don't even know.
Freedom of tangent.
Yeah. So the whole time I was just like, I don't even know how we got here.
I don't know either. But
yeah, I do believe giving something to your kids, or I wish I had this book that I was reading, but he says, "Die with zero." That's what it is. Have you read it?
No, you told me about it though. It's on my
list. So it's actually kind of like a finance book, but his whole philosophy is, when you go out with no money. Like, live your life. It's your money. You've made it. So screw every. No, it's not what he says. Yeah. But he says, like, if you want to give some money to somebody when you're dead, why don't you give it to them when you're alive? You hear these stories of people that this janitor in New York or whatever that died and had like $4.5 million, and he lived in this like little 2-room, 1 bath, like little nothing, and but he was sitting on millions of dollars.
He had no one to give it to.
Well, he gave it like to some charity or something like why? Yeah. And then like he talks about a female lady, whatever, that did a similar thing, and just kind of like, if you want to give money, hey, I want to give $1 million to my kids while I'm alive, then give $1 million. Or if you want to give $1 million when you're dead, give $1 million when you're alive. Figure out your finances. Like I said, it's kind of a finance book. Figure out your finances. You're retired at 65. I plan on living to at least 95. I'm going to give myself another 10-year runway. I got X amount of money. I need X amount to live per year. And divide it up and then give all the rest away. It's kind of his.
What do you think about Uncle Warren announcing that he's donating everything?
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. He said that he told his kids and other beneficiaries, I think there's like nephews and stuff like that, that I think it's something like the foundation is going to keep, or his trust is going to keep like 2% of his wealth, and the other 98% is all going away. He's donating all the charity.
Still billions. Like, it's not like he's 2% for him was a lot.
Well, he's got, what is it, 110 billion?
I don't know.
Net worth, something like that. But yeah, if it's 110 billion,
2% is like 2.2 billion.
Is it? Times 0.02. Yeah, 2.2 billion. Yeah, it's still a lot of money. Yeah, but still, I mean, to build up that substantial amount of wealth and give it all away, like,
yeah, but what's he? I think I've said this on some of the earlier podcasts. I guarantee you, Warren Buffett would trade wealth with us in a heartbeat to take our youth.
Yeah.
So, like, for him, it's not about money. Like, he's lived his life. He's run his race.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hadn't heard that's what he's going to do. But I find it funny when they announce it. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why do you have to?
He's a public figure.
Is he? I mean, like, people are just intrigued by him.
Yeah.
I read a statistic, like, actually, I think it's in that Die with Zero book. Something like 70% of Warren Buffett's wealth was made after he was 65.
Yeah.
So in the last 30 years, it's where 70, 80%, something like that, of his wealth.
There's a bunch of videos like that on YouTube where they talk about, like, Oprah, had a net worth of $40,000 until she was 39 or something. And, all these people that didn't make, and that School of Hard Knocks guy, he's asked a few people, they said, how old were you when you became a millionaire? And they're like 64. And the advice they give is just like, don't think that you're too old for it. Like,
yeah, it's not even, well, I don't even mean from a too old standpoint, but if Warren Buffett would have decided to retire at 65, would you even know his name?
Yeah, right.
Like, he didn't. 30 years ago, was Warren Buffett the Oracle of Omaha? I don't think so. Like, he was just...
Oh, the Oracle of Omaha,
yeah.
I thought it was the Godfather.
No, Oracle.
Oracle makes more sense.
Yeah.
That's
like,
funny.
So, you stick at something long enough, then it'll pay off.
Yeah, that was the theme of our last podcast.
Yeah. So we should have used that then.
We'll reference back in the show notes.
Cut it out and ship it back in an episode.
Right.
But yeah, it's, I don't know. I see why. So I got a list of properties. I was pulling and trying to reach out to owners, and Warren Buffett's daughter was one of them. So she showed up as one of the owners of a couple of real estate properties I was looking at. So I was intrigued by that one.
Yeah.
I didn't figure she was going to sell, just taking her dad's philosophy, so I took her off my list. But you know, it has a buy and never sell mentality, so I assume that's hers as well. But yeah, she doesn't need the money either. She's got multi-million-dollar properties. Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, I think I still got a few tangents in the tank, but
yeah, I'm gonna have to cut you
off.
Out of time. So, cool. Well, on that note, we'll end it here.